Hello guys, welcome again to my channel. In case today is your first time of seeing me or coming across my channel, please consider to hit that red button below that says subscribe. Beside it, there's a notification bell. The essence of that bell is for you to get notified each time I upload a new video, so you will be the first to check it out. If you have done that, I so much appreciate it. Thank you very much. And for those that always come each time I upload a new video, you come by to watch it. I say, may Almighty God bless you abundantly. You guys are super wonderful. I am so happy about that. So my lovely people, in this my channel, I'll be bringing a lot of interesting story and videos. Any video that comes across my way, I'll just bring it and post it to you guys for you to see, and we'll discuss about it. And please don't forget to always share my videos, like my videos, and always drop your comment so I will know what you think in each of my video. Please try to support this channel. So as you're doing that, may Almighty God bless you. So I brought to you a video which we will watch together. Please stay tuned as we watch the video together.
Continues for parents of abducted students in Kankara. It's the second day of vigil at the school premises. There's growing security concern in Benue State after the killing of a couple by a suspected herdsman. Nigeria's land borders are to be reopened after 16 months of closure. President Buhari orders 4 of them reopened with immediate effect. And the EU hammer falls on Ethiopia as it suspends £90 million aid to the country over the crisis in the Tigray region. The House of Representatives is asking the Nigerian Communications Commission to extend the December the 31st deadline issued to SIM card owners to submit their national identification numbers to their network providers. The House lauds the intention of the NCC for security reasons, but wants the process to be extended to 10 weeks, considering the difficulty experienced by Nigerians in obtaining the national identification numbers. Our correspondent Terry Ikumi reports.
The 2 weeks ultimatum issued by the Ministry of Communications for Nigerians to submit their national identification number to their phone service providers or risk being blocked has been generating reactions.
I still have one number that is not registered till today. And I think for security purpose, I think it's a welcome idea.
Question is, how many offices of NIMSI are in Abuja? Right here in Abuja, I can point to 3 or 4, 5 places where you can do SIM registration. And with COVID-19, if people get into panic and begin to rush into these centers, there could be a resurgence and even an increase in infections.
The attention of lawmakers has also been drawn to the matter. In a motion of urgent public importance, the minority leader insists that the intention may be good, but not the timing.
Rising from what happened during endsars, where most Nigerians or most hoodlums were using SIM cards to abuse and terrorize people in office without being able to ascertain or track them. And rising from that behavior, the NCC was actually summoned by the House. NCC was mandated that they should try as much as possible to ensure that all the service providers get all the SIM cards registered. And to start it is, first of all, to register with National Identity Card Management. But we did not envisage, Mr. Speaker, that having given that suggestion, that they will now come and say, okay, we are limiting this process to only 2 weeks.
The contributions that follow also suggest the same thing. For security reasons, the intention is good, but more time is needed.
A situation whereby kidnappers and other scrupulous elements in the nation will kidnap people and they will be transacting ransom via telecommunication, and now and then the security agents will not be able to track them.
So I think it will be good that we give a timeline. I mean, something like after the Christmas, that should end on 28th February 2021.
Many Nigerians are worried about the numerous data collected for various purposes, such as bank registration, voter registration, SIM card registration, driver's license registration, national identity card, and international passport registration, which do not seem to be harmonized. They also worry that the process needed to acquire the national identification number is not an easy one. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And the NCC's directive to bar the activation of new SIM cards and all phone subscribers without national identification numbers from the network is not sitting well with some Nigerians. Our correspondent Dare Dou visits the National Identity Management Commission office in Lagos to see how Nigerians are taking the directive.
This was the atmosphere at the Lagos office of the National Identity Management Commission months ago when the Joint Admission Matriculation Board made NIN a compulsory registration requirement. And when the news of the new directive broke that all SIM cards without NIN will be blocked from mobile networks after a stipulated time, many already dreaded the return of the hectic days at the National Identity Management Office. Today the mood is different, less chaotic, but anxious applicants sit under a tent waiting to be called in. Officials of NIMC says the process has been simplified and the days of overwhelming crowd are over.
We have about 173 agents that will be involved in data capturing. Not only that, we have small, medium scale enterprises that can also capture. We have public institutions, just like we have the state governments too, like in Lagos State, we have Ogun State, we have in Delta, we have in Abia, we have Adamawa State governments that have also been licensed to do this data capturing.
But there are other arguments.
There's a large percentage of population that have BVN. I'm wondering, what would it take to sync that, or for the government to have access? I mean, there's biometrics in there, it has all your date of birth, has your mother's maiden name. What does a lot of information that on a good day, if we're looking at privacy, like why does the government need that from me?
Regardless of what the international passport carries or the driver's license carries, let's just trust that this is an opportunity for them to restructure everything and make sure that everything they have for every individual is correct.
Nigeria has a total active telephone subscription of almost 200 million, and the federal government is hoping to audit the database to checkmate the lingering security challenges in the country, among other issues. The NCC says there's a need for a drastic measure to build a credible national database and as well improve the integrity of the SIM card registration process, a move some consider plausible but poorly implemented. Dari Idowu, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Federal Road Safety Corps is now insisting that the national identification number will be a compulsory requirement for driver's license processing. The FRSC says all applications for the national driver's license in Nigeria must present the national identification number before they can be captured for any class of licenses. FRSC Assistant Corps Marshal Bisi Kazim explains that a harmonized database on citizens' information is critical to resolving the challenges of identifying individuals, to assist security agencies in data collation and quick retrievals to address some of the national security challenges. Let's take a look at some legal matters now. The Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has nullified the conviction and 7-year jail term handed down to the former spokesperson of the People's Democratic Party, Olisa Metu, by Justice Okonabang of the Federal High Court in Abuja. The 3-member panel of the court, led by Justice Stephen Ada, in a unanimous judgment, held that the proceedings of the Federal High Court leading to the conviction of Mr. Metu and his company were biased and must not be allowed to stand. Justice Ada, who delivered the lead judgment, held that the utterances of the trial judge, Justice Okonabang, in the course of the trial established that he was biased. The appellate court therefore ordered that the trial be conducted afresh and directed that the case file be sent back to the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court for reassignment. Justice Okonabang had in his judgment delivered on February the 25th, 2020, and sentenced Mr. Metu to 7 years imprisonment for fraudulently receiving 400 million naira from the Office of the National Security Advisor, then being headed by Colonel Sambo Dasuki. Meanwhile, the court also set aside the indictments delivered against Colonel Dasuki, noting that the Federal High Court made damaging comments against him without giving him a fair hearing. And when the news at 10 returns, Central Bank of Nigeria orders payment service providers to suspend local currency transfers processing through the international money transfer operators. That's on Business News. Please join us again.
Fellow compatriots, I am unsettled by credible intel indicating that another round of endsars protests are brewing in selected cities across the country, likely to commence this week, and possibly as early as Monday, the 7th of December, in other words, tomorrow morning. Every Nigerian should be worried by the specter of another nationwide protest, for any reason at all this time. Not only is it true that the whole nation is still sacrificed and much traumatized by the violent aftermath of the last round of protests, but ground zero has changed drastically.
Guys, welcome again to my channel. In case today is your first time of seeing me or coming across my channel, please consider to hit that red button below that says subscribe.
Benefited from a police force subdued by embarrassment
is for you to get notified each time I upload a new video.
Of few of their colleagues.
Check it out. If you have done that,
simultaneously held
thank you
check
very, very much. And for those that always come, each time I upload a new video, you come by to watch it. I say, may Almighty God
any further
bless
protest
you
is likely to run into a police force still enraged
wonderful. I am so happy
by the
about
vicious
that.
attacks
So my lovely people,
visited
in this
upon
my
her
channel,
last
I'll be
time.
bringing a lot of interesting stories.
Nigerians are aware of the gruesome
videos.
slaughter
Any video that
and
comes
even
across my way,
cannibalism
I will just bring it
of at least
and post it to you guys.
22 police
see.
officers
I will
during the
discuss
violence
about
that
it, and please
erupted
don't
alongside
forget to always
the
share my
endsars
videos,
protest.
like my videos, and always
This is
drop
aside
your
from the
comments.
scores
So I
who
will
were
know
injured
what you think
and maimed in
each of
addition
my
to the
video.
deliberate targeting
Please try to support
and
this
destructions
channel.
of
So,
dozens of
as
police
you're doing
stations
that,
and
may
other
Almighty
police
God
facilities,
bless you.
as well
So
as
I
the
brought
looting
to
of
you
high
a
caliber
video
guns and
which
ammunition
we
from
will
armories.
watch together. Please stay tuned.
These
as we
22
watch
police
the
officers
video
were our
together.
brothers, sons, husbands, and ultimately, they are Nigerians. While it is true that law enforcement should do her job professionally, irrespective of circumstances, it is even truer that official uniformed men and women who were universally hunted and killed across the country by the hoodlums can be unpredictable, even paranoid. In the face of these, and as the first sitting governor who publicly upheld the right of our youths to protest against police brutality, I cannot, in all good circumstances, agree that the time is ripe for another round of endsars protests. Moreover, it seems to me that this is the time to consolidate on the gains of the last protest by participating fully in the various panels and bodies set up by the federal government or state governments to look into police brutality, identify perpetrators, and compensate victims. From what I have seen and from what I can see so far, progress is being made at the various panels. Not only are we seeing embodied and emboldened citizens coming forward with their stories of officers involved in human rights abuses, but such erring officers are being identified, no doubt, established offenders will be punished, just like the scores of the defunct SARS officers who have since been dismissed from the force and who may be further sanctioned. Youths have seats on these panels and have acquainted themselves with commendable humility and maturity. I therefore call on them to persevere in the process despite any perceived shortcomings. It is only unwise hunters who does not make time to roast or otherwise prepare what he took in hunting for consumption or commerce. I deemed another round of endsars protests to be premature and counterproductive at this time. Apart from the higher likelihood of conflict with the police earlier canvassed, we must also admit that the security situation in the country is very precarious at the moment. All patriots must therefore make conscious efforts not to degrade a perilous security situation further. Nationwide protests at this time will only overburden the load-bearing capabilities of our security architecture, increasingly the likelihood of total collapse. No matter the narrative, I doubt that out-of-control anarchy is an objective of the endsars protest. It is also true that we live in an economy that is bleeding badly right now. Traditional responses to COVID-19 has hurt not just Nigeria, but all other countries of the world. Many have fallen into recession. To worsen matter, the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, predicted 3 days ago that the pandemic could push the number of people living in extreme poverty to over 1 billion by 2030. Thank God they are owning up to my earlier predictions, warning and caution. Nigeria's earning and foreign exchange situation is too fragile as we speak to resist situation and protest any longer. Another nationwide protest will worsen the multidimensional poverty indices all over the country and work greater hardship on the ordinary Nigerians we claim to be advocating for. There are also socio-cultural implications. Nigerians tend to travel a lot during the Christmas days. Statistics shows that traveling this period is not only for pleasure, as widely supposed. For many of our people, this is the only time in the year when they can attend to pressing life responsibilities like marriages, hospital appointments, funerals of loved ones, and even community improvement events. As a governor, I am aware hundreds of such events will happen in towns, big and small, in my state and beyond. Many have been fixed for months, even years in advance, with much expenses already gone into planning. All of these will be in disrupt by nationwide protests at this time. And I passionately appeal to the great Nigerian youth not to be the harbinger of such much pain and loss to their compatriots, individual, families, and communities alike. Then, of course, we have socio-political reasons to tread carefully. We have the example of countries which have gone the path of chaotic social change, only to collapse as proof that action and caution are Siamese twin in the journey of all successful revolutions. Social justice is always going to be within a social context. In other words, We need to have a country to even protest for, a better one at all. Social change, like fire, must never be allowed to get out of control, or it will consume the very building it was ignited to warm in the first place, along with the occupants. In public protest, no variable is 100% guaranteed. Every protest can be hijacked, like the endsars protest, the recent Black Lives Matter protest against systemic racism and police brutality in the United States of America were largely peaceful. Yet, it was infiltrated by violent elements. These forced the leaders to frequently recalibrate their strategy in order to keep traveling towards the objectives. For instance, they have ceased fire since November 4th, no doubt, to give the electoral process a chance. I must also stress that when all is said and done, the fastest route to desired social change in a democratic system is via political process. The guarantee of periodic elections and change of guard in government is one reason never to burn it all down at once. Perhaps the most impressive thing about the US protests is how much they have utilized the ballot box in the year 2020. In 2016, about 135 million Americans voted in the presidential elections. In 2020, they are on course to overtake the 180 million mark. Majority of new voters are youth protesters. And mobilizing is very, very key. Currently, Black Lives Matter is actively participating and setting agenda in the Joe Biden's transition program because their role in his support cannot be denied. endsars can do likewise, or even better. Pressure groups take political power when the pressure has built up to the point that they can no longer be refused or ignored. My administration has recently capitulated to the growing powers and participation of women in state politics by ceding all the 21 deputy chairmanship positions in all of our local government councils to them, along with the 21 council speakership positions. Nothing stops endsars from achieving similar accommodation with our political parties. The good thing about a democracy is that if leaders push citizens to bring through a consistent pattern of substandard governance, citizens can always wait for the next election period to make a change. I can testify from my personal experience that a political system can only be comprehensively overhauled from within, and you can only do that when you take control of it as a legitimate and legal participant. It does not matter how much protesters ground the nation, they can never produce even a councillor outside the ballot box, which will be acceptable to the people. Thus, anger at social imbalance or poor governance manifested only through protest, whether peaceful or violent, will only achieve piecemeal objectives. Our endsars protesters must therefore start looking and organizing themselves towards the 2023 general elections now, either by adopting an existing political platform or setting up one of their own. Contrary to perception, 2023 general elections are not far at all. If God keeps lives, We are only about 800 days away from February 2023, when all of this youthful energy can be harnessed and channeled properly for a true revolution via the ballot box. Then, there is more than enough work before the endsars group. I therefore appeal to the Nigerian youth, especially the endsars protesters, to rethink all plans for protests at this point. And indeed, before the panels have round off their assignments, such will be premature, dangerous, and above all, counterproductive to our stated gains, aims, and objectives. Men are still mourning the man beaten by death by the lizard with his small teeth. The leopard should not take money to go and sharpen his fangs, please. I wish all Nigerians the very best of this season. A Merry Christmas, peaceful and prosperous, healthy 2021. I thank you all.
What we're seeing in Nigeria today is part of that story. It's a tragedy that we are watching. It's a tragedy that we are all witnessing, because as we see things falling apart, the pressure this time is not foreign colonialism, forgive me. The pressure instead is corruption and violence and attempts at control. And that's why I totally agree with my honourable friend, the member for Edmonton. We need to call out the corruption. We need to use the powers that we have in this country to stop those who are profiting from the wealth of that great nation and hiding it here. Now, some people will remember when General Gowon left Nigeria with half the central bank, so it is said, and moved to London. We know that today, even now, in this great city of ours, there are, sadly, some people who have taken from the Nigerian people and hidden their ill-gotten gains here. We know that our banks, sadly, have been used for that profit and for that illegal transfer of assets. And that means that the UK is in an almost unique position in being able to actually do something to really exert pressure on those who have robbed the Nigerian people. Now, this puts a particular onus on the Minister, and I know my right honourable friend knows it, that using Magnitsky sanctions today isn't just about protecting Nigeria, although it is. It's not just about respecting Nigerian young people who have been robbed and murdered by these SARS units. It's actually about protecting the United Kingdom, because what happens in Nigeria matters fundamentally to us here. This is the third country of the Commonwealth. This is a country of 200 million people. It is going to be the great economic powerhouse of Africa and one of the great economic powerhouses of the world. This is a country whose wealth, not just in the oil off the river state, but in the imagination and creativity of its people, is witnessed every day in Nollywood and perhaps more my style at the great University of Jos. This is a country that gives so much to the world already, despite the fact that it is ill-governed, brutalised and robbed. Just imagine what it could give if the Plateau State wasn't a scene of conflict and anti-SARS movements, but instead was the global centre of learning that it really, truly could be, and indeed was up until the 1960s. So look, this is an opportunity for the UK to do something real, not just in the interest of Nigerians, though it would be, not just in the interest of Africans, though it would be that too, but fundamentally in the interests of the British people. This is a moment when these petitioners have got it absolutely right. They are not just arguing for the rights of young Nigerians who are claiming their own rights. They are arguing for the rights of Democrats, of free people, and of honourable people everywhere. And I hope that my right honourable friend and her colleague, the Secretary of State, will listen, will look at the sanctions regime and choose very carefully where they apply.
Our solidarity, demonstrate it by identifying and targeting those that we know are responsible for terrible violence and abuses that the activists have faced. The least we should do is to make sure that those who have murdered Nigerians and deprived them of their human rights aren't able to benefit from trade or travel to the UK. In my view, that should include the leaders of the government and the military who are now, even now, refusing to allow transparent and fair investigations to happen and for justice to be implemented. What I want to hear from the Minister today is that a list of Majinsky, I never say that word properly, sanctions is being created and action against those on that list taken in weeks and not years. Our role in this must be, I think, to work with all that we can to identify those responsible and ensure justice is done. And I would be so very grateful if on this occasion the government acts decisively.
Thank you, Mr. Gray, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship and to follow the honourable member for West Ham who spoke so passionately for justice for Nigerians. I would also like to thank the member for Chipping Barnett for securing this very important debate. Now, this, of course, was a popular debate, and it's unfortunate that my honourable friend, the member for Vauxhall, was not called to speak in this debate, and she sends her solidarity with the endsars movement. Now, I must begin by addressing the horrific violence we've seen inflicted upon young Nigerian civilians who were peacefully expressing their fundamental human rights against police brutality. As seen on media platforms, armed military officers discharge live ammunition at these peaceful protesters, injuring and killing them. It is, however, unfortunate that as of today, both federal and state government in Nigeria have issued conflicting statements on the event that occurred at the Lekki tollgate. This has left us with a series of yet still unanswered questions. Who exactly ordered the military to shoot live ammunition in a civilian territory? Why were bank accounts of some individuals who partook in the protest frozen? Mr. Chairman, if a democratic country deprives its people of their aspiration, livelihoods and voices, strips its people from their loved ones, forces them into hiding and instills fear of retribution through violent attack on free speech, then that country can only be a dictatorship disguised as a democracy. Is Nigeria a dictatorship? Now, having now asked this question, I leave the Nigerian public to decide that for themselves. I must now address the question of sanctions, which is what we are here to discuss. If we can ensure that these sanctions will not negatively impact civilians, whether directly or indirectly, then I do support a travel ban and asset seizure sanctions on individual officials found responsible. Now, while discussing sanctions is crucial to determining how we as a nation will respond to the violence recently accumulating in the endsars movement, it can only be the tip of the iceberg. And we must use our platforms to hold the Nigerian government accountable through more than just sanctions. We must do the right thing by the people in Nigeria protesting for their own human rights and ask the questions they've given us the platform to ask, which is, what role did the Nigerian government as a whole play in these attacks? Will there be an independent investigation into the over 100 cases of torture, rape, extrajudicial execution throughout the endsars protests? The reason the world knows about the violent attacks on Nigerian protesters is because civilians on the Lekki tollgate massacre bravely risked their own lives to post these videos on social media. Only a few Nigerian news outlets even reported these stories, and they were all subsequently fined before the Nigerian government denied the attack's existence and began silencing reporters. agencies and individuals have since blamed one another. No one seems to be taking the responsibility. Nigerian civilians risk everything to give themselves a voice, and that they use to expose the atrocities inflicted upon them. And today, 4,000 miles away, the Nigerian government is strangling that voice with a proposed social media censorship bill. We must demand transparency of what is happening to civilians and amplify that news using our platform. We must continue to seek clarity on what happened on October the 20th, when power was cut from the Lekki tollgate and SARS police forces began spraying protesters, gathering there with bullets. Now, I'm sure that many of us have seen the footage of peaceful protesters linked armed in arms, singing the Nigerian anthem as they were indiscriminately gunned down. Now is the time to hold officials to account for their crimes against humanity that they have embarked on. So I call for an impartial human investigation into these human rights violence and to begin a process to secure justice for victims and their family. As we try to make sense of the incidents, we must ask uncomfortable questions of ourselves. I'm referring to the fact that British officials trained SARS police squad from 2016 up until this year, 2020, and they also trained the Nigerian army. Now, I have to ask, what did this training actually entail? Could it have prevented escalation of this kind? Now, standing here as a proud British Nigerian, I implore the Minister and colleagues across the House to pursue answers to these questions and do what it can to facilitate Nigeria's fight for freedom. Thank you.
The fundamental problem, the one single problem here, is President Muhammadu Buhari. That is the one problem. If the service chiefs were doing, and I say this all the time because it goes against common sense, right? If you employ people to do a certain job, a critical job, and they are not doing that which you employed them
fire
to
them.
do, fire
them.
So to me, are these men doing what maybe there is something else Buhari wants them to do? Because it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years of worsening security situation. 6. And Buhari has not thought for them to go. Now, if you, IJ, are the human resource head of my organization, right? And you employ staff, and I keep complaining because Buhari is my employee now. He's the president. And I keep complaining about you, to you, IJ, that the people you have employed, IJ, this staff, HR, this staff are not working. At some point, I will tell myself that HR is the problem. Buhari is the issue here. Nigeria is currently ungoverned. IJ, don't cut me. Nigeria is currently ungoverned as it is. President Muhammadu Buhari was supposed to appear before the National Assembly. He did not appear. He carried himself all the way to Katsina. Then inside Katsina, boys in Kankara were kidnapped. 520. IJ, do you know what 520 means? Indicator. 520 boys were kidnapped. Buhari did not rush to the scene. Instead, we saw videos like the audacity, the effrontery of his media team to release the video of Buhari visiting his house when 520 boys had been kidnapped. Then we see Masari, then people flying from Abuja for condolence visits on something that Buhari is there. No, this thing, I mean, there are many other things, but from this isolated incident, this one, any sane country would have pursued its president. But we have a basket, an overflowing basket, like this basket has holes in it, but it is full and it is overflowing. The whole that created for Buhari, and still Buhari has failed. The one person that is the problem right now is the president of Nigeria, and he needs to go. He is not going.
Gentlemen of the press, or ladies and gentlemen, let me, on behalf of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukuri Subratai, officers and soldiers of the Nigerian Army, welcome you to Nigerian Army Headquarters Conference Room, venue for this important press briefing. This is a press briefing on the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General T.Y. Buratai's meeting with the principal staff officers, general officers commanding Nigerian Army divisions and field commanders held today at this conference room. Today, Monday, the 26th of October, 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukuru Suburate, has just finished an important meeting with his principal staff officers, general officers commanding, and field commanders this morning here at the Army Headquarters Conference Room. At the meeting, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukuru Suburate, made it unambiguously clear to the PSOs, GOCs, and field commanders that there will be no room for disloyalty amongst all officers and soldiers of the Nigerian Army. He directed that they, PSOs, GOCs, and field commanders, must reiterate to all their subordinates that the Nigerian Army is determined to ensure democratic stability in Nigeria as the only panacea for development and progress. General Burate also said the best system of governance is democracy, and we must all ensure that Nigeria's democracy remains stable and steady. We will not allow any force, elements, or destabilizing agents in or outside our country to set our beloved country on fire. We remain resolute in doing everything possible to ensure that subversive elements, detractors, and other enemies of this great nation do not have their aims and objectives of destabilization. General Burate further drew the attention of all the participants at the meeting that the events of the past few days in our dear nation have shown the determination of some unscrupulous individuals and groups to destabilize Nigeria by all means. These same unscrupulous individuals, group, and other undesirable elements have hijacked the peaceful endsars protest marches, resulting to widespread violence, acts of wanton destruction, and looting of public and private properties in many parts of the country. These acts led to the imposition of curfew in several states of the Federation, he stated. He also said that right from the onset of endsars protests, the Nigerian Army has been aware of the grand design by the sponsors of the protest to draw it into the crisis. The plan was to embark on massive propaganda to discredit the military and the government so as to set the people against the Nigerian Army once it is called out to aid the civil authorities. The Nigerian Army, being aware of the devilish plan, was careful not to be dragged in and issued the initial warning through a press release on 14 October 2020 of our resolve to secure and safeguard a united Nigeria. Now the detractors, alongside their local and international collaborators, have mischievously and deliberately misrepresented troops' effort to ensure compliance with the curfew imposed by legitimate civil authorities in Lagos and other states. These agitators are falsely accusing the Nigerian Army of being responsible for the activities of miscreants, despite glaring evidence to the contrary. They have continually threatened to report the Nigerian Army to International Criminal Court and also threatened various forms of sanction against personnel and their families. Thankfully, however, a large percentage of Nigerians and international community have started seeing through the smoke screen of falsehood and deliberate misrepresentation of facts being orchestrated by enemies of Nigeria and have retracted their earlier false publications. Distinguished members of the press, the Chief of Army Staff during the meeting also said, despite all this, the Nigerian Army has continued to exercise restraint, applied all the principles of internal security operations, and fully abided by the internationally recognized rules of engagement as contained in our published standard operating procedures for internal security operations, which are derived from the international human rights laws and are in accordance with the international principles guiding the use of force. He used the opportunity to re-emphasize that none of the PSOs, GOCs, field commanders, and other officers and soldiers of the Nigerian Army should be afraid of the International Criminal Court for carrying out their legitimate duties as stated in the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and other excellent laws, rules, and regulations of Nigeria. He further adds that they have every right under the Constitution to carry out assigned legitimate roles of maintaining law and order in aid of civil authorities and other security agencies. He reiterated that anyone who doubts the commitment of the PSOs, GOCs, and field commanders he reiterated that anyone who doubts the commitment of the PSO, GOCs, and field commanders is their constitutional responsibilities must be made to know that they remain committed, loyal, and unwavering in ensuring the unity, stability, and security of our dear country, Nigeria. He charged them to show the detractors and other elements of destabilization that they are neither a part of them nor in any way supportive of their activities at all times. He directed that any act of arson or attempt to kill or maim any military or security personnel and other law-abiding civilians must be responded to quickly and decisively. According to him, in dealing with any security threat, they must fully cooperate with personnel of the Nigerian Police Force and other security agencies and must ensure that everyone is in full compliance with imposed curfews and other excellent security instructions in force. General Burate further alerted the PSOs, GOCs, and field commanders that the recent activities by unscrupulous elements have shown their desire to acquire arms and ammunition at all costs from security personnel. No less than 10 AK-47 rifles have been lost to this miscreant in the past 2 weeks across the country, with attendant loss of lives of personnel. He charged commanders to nip in the bud this emerging trend at all costs and directed them to warn their troops on internal security or on guard duties outside the barracks to be at maximum alert at all times and to also deal decisively with any attack on their duty locations. Lieutenant General Burate concluded that there is no choice between a democratically united, strong, and prosperous Nigeria and a nation disunited in a state of anarchy and retrogression. We must all strive for a united, strong, stable, and progressive Nigeria. At the end of the meeting, the PSOs, GOCs, and field commanders resolved to A. Remain loyal to the federal government of Nigeria under President Muhammadu Buhari. B. Ensure the unity and indivisibility of our country. C. Assist the federal government to bring an end to insecurity across the country and to prevent miscreants and criminals from hijacking
endsars protests nationwide. D. Remain focused, not to be deterred by any local or international threats. Or E. All commanders have been directed to intensify joint training with the Nigerian police and other sister security agencies to enhance inter-agency collaboration and cooperation. Finally, I wish to extend the appreciation and best regards of the Chief of Army Staff. You are please requested to give this maximum publicity. Thank you for your attention and safe journey back to your various destinations. Sagir Musa, Colonel Acting Director, Army for Regulation. Thank you.
Good evening, wonderful people, great Biafrans, wherever you're listening to us from, lovers of freedom all over the world. I welcome each and every one of you to this very special address this very day. Today's date is the 12th day of December in the year of our Most High Elohim, 2020. The time now approximately is 7 p.m. in the blessed land of Biafra. This is a live presentation on a very special day that Chukwuokike Abiama has designed, that we must do all we can to save ourselves from extinction, from a people who are determined to come down, to take over the lives of the children of the Most High. A day that we have drawn a line in the sand from which we can never, ever retreat. We are not going to surrender our land to Janjaweed. It is not going to happen, not now, not tomorrow, not ever. I welcome each and every one of you, and as I do so, and as it is customary with us here, I will urge you to welcome other people as well, because the whole world is listening. On all our platforms, they are listening. And if you are doing so, it is very, very important that you pay particular attention to the announcements we have to make this evening. Very, very important that we do so. But as always, and before we go any further, we must hand over our proceedings to the Most High. But before I do so, I must always say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to some of you. This is a very special broadcast, and of course, we must pray. And prayer we must, this very evening and always going forward. And I will pray in the language of heaven, because Chukwuokike Abiama is in control of all that we have been doing and will continue to do until Biafra is restored and all the suffering indigenous populations in the damnable zoological republic are set free. Chineke na nke pụrụ ihe niile Chukwuokike Abiama onye na-efe na aja ha nsọ ya mma mgbe niile. Onye ọbụla na ya na-achị eluigwe n'ụwa na-agba akaebe ịhụnanya gị na ebere gị amara gị na ọmịiko gị ebe ndị gị na-eze ebede ngọzi. Anyị wee na-etoghị agbanyeghị atụmatụ ọjọọ niile nke ndị iro. Iwe enye anyị ndụ ala nke dị ndụ were n'ụbọchị nke taa. Anyị wee na-asị na ịja mma niile otu niile dịrị aha nsọ gị. Onye ọ bụ naanị aka ike niile na ọ gbadara aka ya. Anyị wee na-akpọku gị na-asị gị na nke ọma anyị ga-ekele gị, nke ọjọọ ma anyị kelee gị. Anyị wee na-aja gị mma, wee na-eto gị, wee na-asọpụrụ gị n'isi ụmụ gị niile bụ ndị ikwu ndị wee ezu oku mgbe a kpọrọ ha ka ha wee chekwaa ala nsọ gị bụ Biafra onye nwe m na Chineke na ihe n'ikwuru anyị nkwa na o mekataghị ka ndị iro wee were ala nsọ Biafra onye nwe m na Chineke na nke bi n'igwe. Agbanyeghị atụmatụ ọjọọ niile nke ndị iro ma ndị na-agba mgbọgba ebe niile dị iche iche onye nwe m na Chineke nna ihere bụ nke ndị dị etu a n'ụbọchị nke taa. Anyị wee na-eto gị, wee na-asị onye nwe anyị na Chineke nna nke pụrụ m ihe niile. Onye ọ bụ naanị ya na-azọpụta, onye ọ bụ naanị ya bụ okwu ya niile bụ ihe na amen. Anyị wee na-asị ezi ebube dị ngọzi na ọtụtụ na ịja mma na nsọpụrụ site n'ebighị ebi ma ruo n'ebighị ebi. Ise, ise, ise. As I said, this very evening, we are going to announce our preparedness to defend the land of Biafra. And having waited for very many years for the governors in our land, the entire East, by which I mean the Southeast and the South-South, to do what their counterparts in Yoruba land did, and even what the terrorist Miyetti Allah also managed to do, which they have failed to do up until this very day. We have decided to take it upon ourselves to defend the land of Biafra. We are determined and we are resolute, and we are not going to stop until we eradicate every trace of Fulani terrorism, every trace of hegemonic Janjaweedism in our midst. Until that happens, we are not going to waver, we are not going to retreat, not 1 inch, not 1 iota. We have come that we may do the bidding of the Most High for that which we were sent, or should I say, born in the first place. We are going to defend our land against the ravages of Fulani terrorism. We are going to defend the lives of our people against state-sponsored extrajudicial killings by the zoo and forces. We cannot allow what happened in Obi, Watompo, in Aba, in Faruku, in Emene to happen anymore. It can no longer happen in our land. Today, we are sending a note of warning, or should I say caution, to all those that delight in shedding the blood of Biafrans and innocent people right across the length and breadth of this zoological republic called Nigeria. That from this day onwards, any attempt to kill innocent people will be kindly reciprocated. Any attempt by the zoo army or the police to kill innocent populations the same way they did in Obi will be met in equal measure. Therefore, it has fallen upon this very generation to defend our land against the excesses and ravages of Fulani terrorism and the hegemonic tendencies of the Sokoto Caliphate. For years, our mothers have not been able to go to the farms. Our daughters are being raped and cut into pieces. Everybody is aware of what transpired at Nimbo, at Ozowani, what is happening right now in Delta, what is also happening in Ebonyi State, and also in parts of Abia. We cannot allow it to continue. We have cowards and spineless, lily-livered idiots as governors. They have given over our land to the Janjaweed to occupy in perpetuity. This very generation, this very IPOB will not tolerate it. Not now, not tomorrow, not ever. We would rather all perish and die than to allow our land to be taken over by the Janjaweed. It cannot happen. This is a warning to all the governors who are conspiring due to one political consideration or the other to give our land to infidels and blood-sucking demons from the Sahel. It cannot happen, not under our watch. It's not going to happen. Not now, not tomorrow, not ever. Our invaders, we are being told, come from Senegambia. We are being told they come from Mali. Some are from Nigeria Republic. Some are from Chad, according to the governor of Kaduna State, El Rufai. Therefore, we are setting up the Eastern Security Network to combat the excesses of these vagabonds and criminals from across the Sahel. Along the same lines as Amotekun, and even the ones set up by the terrorists themselves, Miyetti Allah. What we are launching today officially before the congregation of a global audience is the Eastern Security Network. Not a Biafran army, no. Anytime this army will march, we shall let the world know. But for now, and for our present purposes, we are there to defend the land of Biafra against these marauders from the Sahel, against a very determined incursion being led by terrorists, Fulani terrorists to be precise. What we are doing is no different from what Amotekun is seeking to achieve.